Hello, everybody. I am Magikarp Usefly, and today we have a very special episode. We are interviewing Nick NANAVATI, the creator of Art of War. And so we are doing an interview introducing him to you guys. If you guys don't know who Nick NANAVATI is, we will, he's going to tell you everything about himself. That's what this whole entire interview is about. A great person, one of the best players in the 40K community. So without further ado, let's talk to Nick.
So my name is Nick NANAVATI. I am a professional 40K player, coach, and content creator. It's been my full-time job for just over 2 years now. I have been playing 40K for 17 years. That's not long at all. I guess over the time throughout my span playing 40K, I started as a 10-year-old, so grandiose ideas of being a professional 40K player weren't too high when I was 10 years old. But as I played and got through, I got more and more competitive, got better at it, started traveling to events. I have won almost every tournament that there is to win. I've won WTC for 2 different teams. That's like the Warhammer Olympics, essentially, in Europe. I have won LVO, I've won ITC, I've won the Nova Invitational 3 times, I've won Adepticon 4 times. These are all 200 plus person events. Been around the block in the 40K tournament scene, and now I've started to expand that with the Art of War, which is our brand, where we do a lot of personal coaching and we teach classes and we focus on building a community to really help people get better at 40K, and that's what my focus is now.
So what were your inspirations for starting to play 40K? Like, was there a reason? Like, what was the big reason as to it?
Peer pressure. as a little 10-year-old kid, I was in 5th grade, and my 5th grade teacher, Sean Thorne, he played Warhammer, Warhammer Fantasy and 40K, back when Fantasy was a game. And he basically started a little club for the kids to play after school, get them into Warhammer instead of drugs, that kind of thing. So I had no interest in doing this. I was like, I don't care about Warhammer, what's this? But all my friends wanted to play, so I was like, I like friends, so then I started playing Warhammer. There was a local store 15 minutes from my house called The Only Game in Town. They sold Warhammer, they had places for people to play Warhammer, and I went there, and it almost was like a little community in itself, as most game stores kind of become. So I started hanging out there as like a teenager, making friends who play Warhammer at the Warhammer store, and I started playing there locally, making friends. And once it really became kind of like my friend group, then I played Warhammer. That's when it transitioned to I guess a bit of a lifestyle for me. Like after school, I'd go play Warhammer with my friends, that kind of thing. And then from there, it just grew and grew and grew into what it is today.
What drove you to to become more of a pro player? Like, what was the what was the turning point?
I was really, really bad at Warhammer. I was no child prodigy, let's put it that way. I would go to RGTs, and if I won a game, that was super exciting, but I loved it. I absolutely loved the competition. I've always been a competitive person, and if not in Warhammer, in anything I tried before that and just in my life. I think that's just kind of how I was brought up. I like competition, I like competitive stuff, and even though I was terrible at it as a kid, you don't really focus, or at least I didn't focus on the fact that I sucked. I focused on, I just enjoying this, I want to get better. And as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, what else was I going to spend my time on? School? No. So I put my time into Warhammer, much to my parents' dismay, and it worked out for me. So, but really that's what it was. I just kept going to RTTs, and then that kind of spawned as inspiration. I want to go to a GT. So I started traveling. I lived in New Jersey at the time. So I would drive to Baltimore with my friends for a weekend, get a hotel room, be a whole experience. And as a kid, that's a cool experience. Play Warhammer for 5 days or for 5 games, and go 2 and 3, come in 4,000th place and love it. And then eventually you get better.
How did you balance your regular life with traveling and also playing and preparing for everything?
I really took a dip through college and focused, I guess, a little bit on the schoolwork aspect of college and a lot of it on the partying aspect of college. After college, I got a job at Revlon, and this really kind of transitions into how I became a professional 40K player too. Revlon is a women's cosmetics company. It's giant, big corporation life. So, I lived in a cube and I did Excel for 8 hours a day, and then I went home, and I actually hated my life, so that sucked. And I used 40K as an escape, which got me to be really, really good at Warhammer, because I would just be doing Warhammer on the side of Excel all day, every day. And then on top of that, it is a corporate job, so you'll make decent money doing corporate job work. And I was right out of college, so I went back to living with my parents. So I had essentially no bills and pretty decent money. So I used that to just travel all over the place on the weekends to play 40K. Around right after I had won LVO 2018, which is the first LVO I won, the first ITC I won. I right around that time, like the same week, basically, I lost my job at Revlon. My position was honestly not necessary at all. Like I said, I was an Excel monkey. So I was like, well, what do I do with my life now? So I was planning on going to grad school in September. This was about January where I won LVO and lost my job simultaneously. So I was like, I'll go to grad school in September, get an MBA, turn my life into a real life here. But that leaves me with this like 8-month gap where I have nothing going on. So what do I do? And I was like, well, I'm riding the back of an ITC LVO win, and the fashion with which I won that year was very stylish. So a lot of people, I was a hot name for a minute, and a lot of people's tongues in the 40K community. So that's when I launched my initial attempt at this, which was the Brown Magic. I didn't think it would turn into this whatsoever. I was just, like playing 40K, and I wanted to share the love. So started something called the Brown Magic. It was just a little blog, and it just took off so tremendously. There was so much support for it. The community really got behind what I was trying to do. And the fact that I wasn't working at the time meant I could really put my soul into it. And I did. At which point I kind of saw a choice, a crossroads in my life where it's like I could either go all in on Warhammer and try to make this my career. And, my parents were like, don't do that. That's stupid. You're dumb. And or I could go to grad school and live a much more kind of traditional style of business life. And I, as you can see, went down the 40K path, and so far it's worked out for me, thankfully.
What was it like starting Art of War?
An adventure. So Knights of the Game Table, which is another content creation company for Warhammer, they found me, and they kind of really recruited me, I guess, is the best way to put it. So the guy who runs Knights of the Game Table, his name's Adam Lyons, really awesome dude. He's a very successful businessman. He has like 4 or 5 different companies, and 40K is one of his hobbies. So he started a Warhammer company. Really awesome guy. He kind of took me on as his protege for a couple of years, and like I did a lot of contract work for them, creating Knights of the Game Table content. I made my own brand with Knights of the Game Table. It was like, Nick NANAVATI's thing at Knights of the Game Table, but it was their brand, it was their dream. And every time I wanted to take the ship in a different direction, I'm not the one in charge here. So that's kind of, that put the idea in my head, like, do I want to do this for someone else or do I want to do this for myself? But doing it for someone else means you don't have to do it for yourself, and you get to save, I don't have to worry about the logistics or the back end or any of that stuff. I just do the content, and I can focus on what I'm good at. What really pushed me to Art of War from Knights of the Game Table is one of my coaching clients at the time, and now my podcast co-host, if you ever listen to the Art of War 40K podcast, John Damaris. He was one of my coaching clients, and I guess he had an idea. He ran a very successful podcast for War Machine back when he played War Machine more avidly. He's a very competitive player there. So he hit me up as one of my clients and was like, Nick, I have this idea for a podcast. I want to run it by you. Do you want to give me 5 minutes to listen to this elevator pitch? And me being the kind of guy I am, I will listen to everybody's crazy ideas and maybe not go with them, but I will give you the time of day. So I gave him the time of day, and I loved his idea. It basically was the premise of our show, the Art of War 40K podcast. And John's a doer and I'm a doer. So things got done, and, we started it. We called it the Art of War podcast because we just wanted a different name for it, the Knights of the Game Table, since it's ours. And it grew so rapidly and so tremendously that I was like, you know what? Why stop at the podcast? I'm gonna go all in. And that's how we came up with Art of War as it is today.
Going on with that, what was it like winning your first event?
I was 14 years old. This was the first time I had ever flown for a tournament. I flew with my mom to Florida from New Jersey. Ironic, I now live in Florida. I flew with my mom as a 14-year-old to Florida, and I played Warhammer for a weekend at like 100 and something person tournament. And I went undefeated, which was absolutely unheard of for me. I like really showed up to the scene that day, which is crazy because like I was like a 14-year-old kid. Went undefeated. Back in those days, you could go undefeated and not win because the way 40K worked back then. I think I came in second or third place. But I was so proud of myself, and my mom was proud of me, and my parents were proud of me, and my friends were like, "This is so cool, and like, great job." And that's really when I was like, "I'm doing it. I'm gonna make it. I'm 14 years old. I didn't think I'm 14, but like, it's true.
Yeah.
Like, so while it wasn't a win, it felt like a win, and that's really what kind of kept me going, and that like, pat on the back you need to know that you're gonna really go the distance. It felt great. It really felt great. It wasn't my favorite moment in 40K history. I have a few great moments in 40K history, but it was, that's 13 years ago, and I still remember it.
Mm-hmm. And then, how was it winning your first like big tournament?
There's a few of these. My first Nova Invitational win, that was pretty something. That was the very first ever Nova Invitational. So what they did for the Nova Invitational was they got together, I think it was 16 or 32, I forget how many people it was back then, of the best players they could get their hands on, invite only. And like, I spent a lot of time practicing and preparing for this tournament. It was a $1,000 cash prize for the winner, and that was the biggest cash prize anyone had ever heard of at the time in the 40K industry. And keep in mind, I'm like 16 years old. This is like $1,000 is not nothing for me. So I really put my soul into that event, and then I won. And that felt great, just because like it feels good when you work so hard for something and you want something so badly and then you get it. It's really great. Then I won. I'm gonna take 3 stories here because these are the ones that stand out to me. I won Adepticon the very first time. I've won it 4 times now. This was in 2016. Sorry, no, this was in 2012. This is when I just graduated college. Just graduated high school. There it is. And it was my second ever Adepticon. The first year I did really well, but I didn't win. The second time, I very much like the Nova Invitational. I took it really seriously. I got my act together and I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then I won. And then that win was very impressive to me because I was a 256 person tournament, the largest tournament I'd ever won by miles. And this was like internationally acclaimed. Like, people fly from Europe to play in this event at the time. And for me to win, it was like a moment like, oh my God, I made it. Like, I'm here, I've crossed the finish line. And then on top of that, that was symbolic because, or it was substantial, I should say, because it was the first time winning that tournament gets you put onto the American ETC team, which is like the American Warhammer Olympic team. So that was always a dream of mine to make that team and then go there. But then, as life goes on, the goals shift. So first goal was accomplished. We made the team. Next goal became to win the tournament. So in 2018, after 6 years of failing with this team, 3rd place, 4th place, 10th place, not first place, over and over and over. Back to back in 2018, I won the ITC, which is, again, another moment where I put my soul into this event, and I freaking won this tournament. Like, I did my work. I won that event, and that was true euphoria. Like, I felt like I was high without being high. It was a feeling I have never experienced in my life before, and I don't know if I ever will again, but I hope so, because I was on cloud 9. So that was amazing because that was becoming #1 player in the world. And that at that point had been a dream of mine for a decade, and I finally did it. Later that year, I've just started my coaching stuff. I take Team America, we go to ETC, and then we win the team championship, which we had but we struggled to win for 6 years. We finally won. So that was just back to back to back success right there. And I was like, I don't know, those were my key highlight moments from my career in 40K. Those are the ones that mean the most to me.
How do you keep on top of like trends and trying out new lists and concepts?
I read all the books that come out. Maybe if there's no big events coming up, maybe I'll get lazy with it. But before events, I will read all the rules and become familiar. I'll keep up with the meta lists. I'll study who's winning tournaments and what lists are doing well. I'll do my homework in essence, and that really helps with the knowledge gap. And the knowledge gap between you and your opponent is one of the biggest things you need to overcome in competitive 40K, because there's probably infinite, and I mean functionally infinite, combinations of things in this game. And no one can know infinite things. So how do you manage that is basically by making yourself as familiar as possible so you're not caught off guard. And then on top of that, it's what you would think about. The way I would describe this is 40K for the long time in my life, and certainly when I was at my peak, when I was crushing out ITC and WTC and things like that. That's like what I would think about when I wasn't thinking about something else. So when you're in the shower, what do you think about? I thought about Warhammer. When you're doing your morning walks or whatever it is you do, when you're not, it's your you time. My you time was spent thinking about Warhammer. And that's really, to go from good to great, I think that's how it has to be. At least that's what it was for me and what I've seen in other great players. That's their common trait. There's many common traits, but that's one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and it could be something from just like laying in bed and just like opening up Battlescribe on your phone and just like trying out different lists. It could be stuff
It's like a lot of people will mindlessly read through social media posts and whatnot, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it might be, maybe follow some politics in their spare time, whatever you're into. What I was into was Warhammer. So instead of mindlessly scrolling through Facebook and liking pictures, I read through a Warhammer book or read a Warhammer list or something like that.
When did you decide to go like pro full time?
There was no one hurrah moment. If there was one hurrah moment, it is when I made the decision to start the Brown Magic right after winning ITC in 2018. But even then, that was supposed to be a 6-month filler thing just until I get my feet on the ground in grad school, just so I'm not literally wasting my time. And it had always been something I wanted to do, but I figured there's no point in trying to make a 40K career when I can make a real career, something like that. So the choice was make the Brown Magic, do this for 6 months. I'm gonna do that. Then 2-3 months into the Brown Magic, I'm doing this all day, every day for this amount of time, and I'm being successful with it. Why should I stop? So then grad school got pushed off for a year. And then grad school, I guess, isn't happening. Maybe it is, maybe I will change my mind. Maybe I'll go part-time grad school while doing this. But the way I look at it right now, every minute I spend not growing Art of War and not doing this, and I spend doing a grad school thing or something like that, or focus on another part-time job for more security in my life, is me believing this is going to fail. And I should just go all in on the fact that this is going to fail. Because the only way this succeeds is if I make it succeed. And the best way to make it succeed, this Art of War, this 40K coaching full-time or whatever I do, is to put my everything into it. And that's been true for my entire life. The only way I won LVO and ITC and all those events, the only way I am here is because when I do something, I put 110% into it. I do it. And whenever I put 60% of my time into something, it just flops.
Those are all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything else that you want to plug in or anything?
Well, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't plug my own channel. So if you're interested in learning more about the competitive aspects of the game, not even just the high-level tactics and the strategies and really upping your game to that next level, but also what it's like to go to a Warhammer tournament, what it's like to hang out with the pros and how we actually talk. We do hobby hangout streams where we paint models and just hang out with you on Mondays and Wednesdays on our YouTube channel from 1 to 3 Eastern time. We do tons of games so you can get to know us and things like that. I just encourage you guys to check out our YouTube channel. It's totally free. Art of War 40K. We have Codex reviews. We have Army List reviews. We do coaching games and all kinds of live streams. So check it out. If you're into it, get more involved in 40K. I love it. It's a great community, and I highly encourage people to become a part of it.
That is it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. We have a lot more cool stuff going out that we're working on with Art of War. It's going to be a really, really fun time. So I'm very, very excited about it. I'm
super excited too, Matt. Thanks so much for having me. This has been fun.
It's going to be so cool. But yeah, if you guys like this video, make sure you guys press the like button, press subscribe, and go check out Art of War after this in order to check out what they're doing and learn more about them. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye, everybody.